You wake up one day, staring at the ceiling, feeling an unsettling emptiness. Something's wrong, but it's hard to put your finger on it. It's as though the ground beneath you has shifted, leaving you off balance and questioning everything. Your mind is a whirlwind of confusion, and the person closest to you seems to be the one making it all worse. They say one thing, but their actions tell you another. They make you feel like you're walking on eggshells, constantly second-guessing your thoughts and feelings. This is the psychological trap of narcissistic manipulation. The narcissist controls not just your actions, but your emotions, twisting your reality until you no longer recognize yourself. They use your vulnerabilities, insecurities, and compassion as tools to maintain their dominance. You feel drained, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. The worst part? You know something's off, but you can't pinpoint exactly what it is. You wonder, am I the one overreacting? Why do I feel like I'm losing myself? If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, you know the relentless feeling of being caught in someone else's game. It feels like you're stuck in an endless cycle of confusion, guilt, and self-doubt. But here's the thing. The manipulation you're experiencing is not a random occurrence. It's rooted in something deeper. Carl Jung's theories on the unconscious mind, shadow projection, and individuation offer a powerful key to breaking free from this psychological trap. According to Jung, narcissists don't manipulate out of malice. They're projecting their own unconscious fears and unacknowledged parts of themselves onto you. This understanding is the first step toward liberating yourself from the cycle of narcissistic control. What if I told you that the way to take back your power is already within you? You just need to understand the game they're playing. And more importantly, you need to learn how to stop playing it. In this video, we'll dive deep into the psychological mechanisms behind narcissistic behavior and show you how to reclaim your life from this toxic influence. Carl Jung's work in psychology offers a profound way to understand the dynamics of narcissism and the emotional manipulation it brings. At the core of narcissism, according to Jung, lies a psychological defense mechanism: the shadow. The shadow represents the hidden, repressed parts of ourselves, those aspects we're too afraid to face. It's the chaos, the insecurities, the untapped potential, and the things we deny about ourselves. For the narcissist, this shadow is so frightening that they can't confront it head-on. Instead, they project it onto others. They might accuse you of the very things they refuse to see in themselves, such as weakness, selfishness, or failure. This projection serves a dual purpose. It protects them from facing their own internal terror, but it also allows them to maintain their carefully constructed persona. The narcissist's ego is inflated, exaggerated to the point where it no longer reflects their true self. It's a fragile, precarious construct built on admiration, control, and constant validation. To the outside world, they appear confident, strong, and flawless, but underneath, they fear being exposed as weak, vulnerable, or insufficient. The narcissist is, in fact, terrified of their own humanity. They can't face their imperfections, so they disguise them, projecting them onto you or anyone around them who is more willing to embrace their own shadow. You, the empathetic one, are often their target. They know you have the capacity for compassion and care, so they use that against you. In your empathy, they find a tool to manipulate, to control, and to maintain their delusional sense of superiority. Jung argued that narcissism is not necessarily driven by malicious intent. It's rooted in unconscious fear. The narcissist isn't choosing to hurt you consciously. They're driven by an underlying terror of their true self, one that they'll do anything to avoid confronting. This makes their behavior even more insidious, because while they inflict harm, it's not out of calculated malice, but rather a desperate attempt to preserve their false self-image. Understanding this underlying psychological foundation gives you the power to break free from their manipulative grip. At the heart of narcissistic behavior lies a deep-rooted need for control. The The narcissist's life is not guided by a sense of inner peace or self-assurance, but by a profound fear of their own inadequacies and vulnerabilities. To manage this fear, they must manipulate the perceptions of others, controlling how they are seen and understood. Narcissists need to dictate how others feel about them, often through charm, coercion, or outright emotional exploitation. Every action is calculated to reinforce their sense of superiority, even at the expense of others' emotions and realities. This need for control is driven by an empty space within them. Schopenhauer's view of narcissism aligns with Jung's concept of ego inflation. This inner emptiness is so unbearable that the narcissist fills it by demanding constant admiration and validation. It's as if their self-worth depends entirely on external approval. They seek constant praise, not because they enjoy it, but because they need it to mask the emptiness they cannot bear to face. Every compliment, every piece of attention they receive is like a temporary patch over their internal void, but it's never enough to heal the underlying wound. Another core component of narcissistic behavior is the psychological fog they create around themselves and their victims. This fog is a manipulation technique that distorts reality, leaving the victim confused and uncertain of their own perceptions. It's a form of emotional abuse that wears down the victim's ability to trust themselves. The narcissist might twist facts, offer contradictory stories, or act in ways that create doubt in the victim's mind, making them question their own sanity. This fog is essential to the narcissist's control. As long as the victim is lost in confusion, they can't see the narcissist for who they truly are, and the narcissist can continue feeding off the emotional energy of the relationship. Through control, validation, and the psychological fog, narcissists operate from a place of fear, not strength. They are not the powerful, self-assured figures they appear to be. Their facade is fragile, held together by manipulation and the constant need for reinforcement. This is what makes them so dangerous. They're driven by fear, and they're willing to destroy anyone in their path to maintain the illusion of power. Understanding these dynamics is the first step to breaking free from their grip. Carl Jung's solution to breaking free from narcissistic manipulation begins with understanding that the first step to reclaiming your power is conscious withdrawal of projection. Narcissists project their unresolved, unconscious fears and inner chaos onto others. They cast their shadow onto you, expecting you to absorb their emotional turmoil. However, by withdrawing emotional energy from their manipulations, you stop feeding into their need for control. You no longer buy into their false narratives or feel obligated to fix or validate their emotional state. Instead of reacting to their provocations, you remain grounded in your own emotional truth. This leads directly to the practice of conscious detachment. Detachment does not mean cutting off emotionally or being cold. It's the art of maintaining psychological sovereignty. When you detach consciously, you stop participating in the narcissist's emotional games. You refuse to engage with their efforts to confuse or manipulate you. Their tactics lose their power when you stop feeding the cycle with your emotional responses. By setting firm emotional boundaries, you can hold on to your sense of self without being pulled into their drama. The process of individuation is central to Jung's teachings and offers a profound tool for breaking free. Individuation is the journey of becoming your true self, integrating your conscious and unconscious selves. It's a transformative process that leads to self-realization. The more you engage in individuation, the more you connect with your authentic power and your inner wisdom. This means that you no longer need external validation or approval to feel worthy. Your worth comes from within, and this internal stability makes you immune to the narcissist's manipulative tactics. One of the most effective ways to maintain detachment is by setting firm boundaries. Using a phrase like, "I'm not available for this conversation," disrupts the narcissist's control immediately. It signals to them that you are no longer a willing participant in their emotional drama. This simple statement reclaims your power. cuts the manipulation at its roots and establishes your psychological boundaries clearly and assertively. The boundary sentence, "I'm not available for this conversation," works because it disarms the narcissist without triggering their typical defense mechanisms. Narcissists are conditioned to expect emotional responses from their targets, and they rely on their ability to provoke, confuse, or manipulate others to maintain control over them. When you utter this sentence, you remove the possibility of further engagement on their terms. The power of this phrase lies in its simplicity and clarity. It's not an argument, nor a challenge. It's a firm statement of your own emotional boundary. The narcissist can't respond to it in the usual way because it doesn't offer them anything to latch onto. It stops the emotional exchange cold, leaving them with nowhere to go. On a deeper psychological level, the phrase terrifies the narcissist because it forces them to confront their shadow. Jung's concept of the shadow involves the parts of the self that are repressed or denied, traits the narcissist refuses to acknowledge or confront. Narcissists often live in a state of ego inflation, hiding behind their persona to mask insecurities and emotional fragmentation. When you withdraw your emotional participation, you're forcing them to see the truth of their unacknowledged self, the vulnerability they've been avoiding. This is what scares them. The realization that their manipulative tactics no longer have power over you. Proof of its effectiveness becomes evident in the narcissist's escalation. Narcissists don't like being ignored or dismissed, so they'll likely escalate their behavior in an attempt to regain control. They may try guilt, anger, or manipulation, all of which are signs that your boundary has rattled them. Their reaction confirms that the boundary is having the desired effect. You're no longer participating in the cycle they've created. This gives you the power to remain detached and in control of your own emotional space, rendering the narcissist's manipulation ineffective. Maintaining your boundary is not just a one-time action. It requires consistency. Narcissists will often test the waters, attempting to reassert their control and regain emotional leverage. Their escalation is a clear indicator that your boundary is having the desired effect. When a narcissist's usual tactics of manipulation fail to elicit the emotional response they seek, they'll likely escalate their behavior, whether through anger, guilt, or more subtle forms of emotional baiting. But this escalation is not a sign of their strength. It's a sign of their weakness. It reveals that they're losing their grip on you. The more you maintain your boundary and refuse to engage, the more their tactics begin to backfire, weakening their influence over you. This process of consistent detachment is integral to your psychological individuation, the process of becoming a whole, self-aware individual, as Carl Jung described. Through individuation, you integrate your unconscious self, moving past emotional dependencies and reaching a state of greater emotional resilience. When you stop reacting to the narcissist's games, you begin the journey toward self-realization, where your sense of self is no longer shaped by external manipulation. You reclaim the power of your own identity, free from the toxic dynamics of others. The power you gain from maintaining firm boundaries is profound. As you continue to detach emotionally, you reclaim your personal power, the power to decide what impacts you and what doesn't. You stop relying on others for validation and instead cultivate a deep sense of emotional independence. This newfound strength protects you not just from narcissistic manipulation, but from any external force that seeks to disturb your emotional peace. With each boundary you hold, you grow stronger, more resilient, and more in control of your own psychological landscape. When you understand and apply the principles of psychological sovereignty, you unlock the ultimate shield against narcissistic manipulation. Psychological sovereignty means owning your emotional state and no longer allowing others, especially narcissists, to dictate your reality. It's the realization that you are not subject to their whims, moods, or control. This kind of sovereignty makes you immune to their manipulative games because your sense of self is anchored within you. not in the unstable projections of someone else. You can recognize their tactics for what they are, attempts to sway your perception, to pull you into a world where you are subjugated to their emotional chaos. Achieving this authentic power comes from creating a life of emotional stability and independence. Narcissists prey on the weak spots of their victims, on the emotional needs that haven't been fulfilled, or the desire for external validation. When you build your own inner fortress, focusing on your growth and well-being, you no longer need their approval. You become self-sufficient, emotionally and psychologically. Relationships in this new mindset are an enhancement to your life, rather than a source of validation or emotional support. Jung's final insight speaks directly to this process of self-realization. True psychological independence is the key to genuine personal growth. When you no longer rely on external validation to feel worthy, you are free from the need to please or seek approval from toxic people. Narcissists, who depend on manipulating others to fill their internal emptiness, lose their power over you. In the end, it is your internal peace and your ability to stand firm in your truth that not only frees you from narcissistic influence, but propels you toward a more fulfilled, authentic existence. With psychological sovereignty, you move beyond the manipulation, towards freedom and self-empowerment. As you stand on the brink of understanding narcissistic manipulation, remember this: the power lies within you. The boundary you set today is the beginning of your journey towards psychological sovereignty. By practicing detachment and refusing to engage in the narcissist's games, you reclaim control over your emotional world. You are no longer a puppet, swayed by their chaotic strings. Instead, you are the master of your own narrative, and that is the true essence of power. Narcissistic manipulation thrives on your participation. When you no longer respond to their emotional bait, you strip them of their power. Their tactics will escalate, but that only proves they're losing control. In that space of emotional sovereignty, you become immune to their influence, liberated from the chains that once bound you. So ask yourself, are you ready to embrace this newfound power? Are you ready to transcend the manipulation, to become the person who defines their own worth from within? If this message resonates with you, it's time to act. Set your boundaries, embrace psychological sovereignty, and know that you have the ability to break free from toxic patterns, reclaim your peace, and ultimately lead a life of true freedom. Share this video with others who might be trapped in toxic relationships and need these insights to help them heal. Subscribe for more psychological tools and insights on navigating toxic dynamics, embracing emotional independence, and living a life grounded in personal power. The journey toward freedom starts now. Are you ready to take the first step?